Hello, today I have a very interesting report for you. It affected multiple websites because the bug was in Django framework and it allowed bypassing CSRF protection. This bug was reported on Hackerone by Sergey Bobrov back in 2014. To fully understand this vulnerability, you need to know something about Google Analytics. And first thing you need to know is that it's meant to track users' activity, and to do it, it uses cookies. And in the cookie, there is a field for referrer host and referrer path, and they are put into the cookie unfiltered. And in the attack scenario, where the attacker tricks the victim into visiting attacker.com website, and then he redirects the victim into the vulnerable site with Google Analytics, the attacker's com website and path will be visible in the victim's cookie. So in such attack scenario, the attacker completely controls the victim's cookie. And the hunter mentioned that he had reported this behavior to Google and was rewarded for it. So he actually got 2 bounties for this report, one from Django and one from Google. So now it's time to understand how do web servers handle cookies. And actually, it's a very simple text processing mechanism. The cookies are being sent in the cookie header in the form of name equals value, semicolon, another cookie name equals another cookie value, and so on and so on. And turns out that a lot of web servers also accept colons instead of semicolons as the cookie separators. But what Python plus Django did was also accept square brackets, and this was the behavior that browsers completely did not expect, and this is the vulnerability here. Because if there was a square bracket in the cookie value, the browser did not think that it might be interpreted as a cookie separator, so the browser would not encode it, nor filter it, nor anything. It would just send it as the cookie value, and the web server would actually interpret the same input as the 2 separate cookies. So now we can chain these 2 things by injecting a square bracket into the path of our website, and then when the victim will open a link of the vulnerable site, our square bracket will be put into Google Analytics cookie, and the browser will send this cookie thinking it's just a standard cookie value, but the Django web server would understand this as 2 separate cookies. But there is one more thing. Actually, at the end of the cookie, there are attributes, and the attributes may be like domain and path, which are very important. And as the attacker, we want to override them somehow, but we can't just erase them. But happens out that browsers only take into consideration first few attributes and the rest is ignored. So what we can do is just put our attributes as the first ones and put many of them. It might be the same attribute over and over again, it doesn't make any difference. And what the browser will do is just consider those first attributes and ignore the last ones, which will be the actual ones appended by Google Analytics. So now we have a way to set an arbitrary cookie for the victim with arbitrary attributes. And now you may be thinking, how can we actually exploit this to bypass CSRF protection? So there are multiple approaches to CSRF prevention, and one of them is double submit cookie mechanism. It works this way that it sets a cookie called, for example, CSRF token, and then when the form is sent, the same value has to be in the request body. What the server does is it just validates whether the same value is in the body and in the cookie. It's very efficient for the server because it does not have to store anything in the database. It just compares the value from the cookie with the value from the body. And why does this work? Because as the attacker, you can obviously set an arbitrary value in the request body of the CSRF you're trying to make, but you don't control the cookie value, and you have no way of doing this unless you have a way to set an arbitrary cookie. And that's exactly the way that this attack works. You have a way to set a cookie for the victim. So you set a CSRF token cookie for the value that you want, and then you send the same value in the body. the server just compares whether two values are the same, and they are, so the request goes through. There's also a little bit of luck involved, because the actual CSRF token cookie sent by the server will be sent in your request, but if the web server sees two cookies with the same name, it will take the latter value, so it might be a little bit random, but generally it works. So that's it for today's report. I think those ones that affect frameworks are especially interesting because they might mean that half of the internet is vulnerable. In this very example, it was not the case because the site had to use Django along with Google Analytics and double submit cookies, so this limited the amount of sites vulnerable, but I still think that it's a very, very interesting report. The fix was, of course, not treating characters like square brackets as cookie delimiters by Django. So thanks for watching this video. If you've learned something new, leave a like and a subscription, and for now, goodbye.